All right, so this is especially for people coming into socionics, kind of new learning, kind of got inspired, so decided to kind of bring this up and hopefully help some people out on this. All right, so this is what you need to really successfully be typing people using Model A, classic socionics. Okay, this is the basic building blocks that you need to do. It's an absolute must have. Without it, you don't have a typing. You're not worth listening to. You don't have shit. Okay. This is just how the game is played here in Socionics land. So you have critical functional dichotomies. Okay. When you have the model A, which is kind of this thing down here, okay, how do we determine where all the elements are going to go? To recap, elements SE, NE, NI, FE, those are elements. IMEs, they're information elements. Right? Functions in socionics are the exact spot in the model, the individual slot. Number one, the leading function. Number two, the creative function. Three, the role function, right? That's what we call functions, right? So this is just making sure our terminology is correct. Now, how do we determine where everything's going to go? Well, we have dichotomies for that. Now, there are three main dichotomies, critical ones. Must have. Without it, you got nothing, as I said. Right here, these three. The first one, bold versus cautious. Bold, what is standing out? What does the individual seem to be pushing out? They're actively talking about it, actively enjoying it, putting it out there for you to see it. It's very bold. Which are the ones that are more cautious? They're a little more tucked away. They're not really putting it out there as much. It's kind of coming and going a little bit. Bold versus cautious. Very important to determine what is the leading function, what is the mobilizing function. They got to be bold. You need to be seeing that. Now, the second one, and this is probably the more important one, actually. I should have renumbered it and put this as number one, because this really is something that separates socionics from most of the other systems out there. Socionics, we pay heavy attention to what is valued versus unvalued. Socionics believes that everyone can play with all eight elements. We can see them all or deal with them in some kind of way. But what's the difference? Some are valued and some are unvalued. What do we mean by value? Valued is something that you like it, you care about it, it means something to you, you enjoy it, you want more of it. That's value. Something you don't value, you don't want any more of it, you don't really care about it. It's irrelevant to you, it doesn't mean anything. Right? This is central to figuring out what's important. What is this type all about? And it's critical to figuring out quadras. Why are we called quadra values? Because all the four types within that quadra value the same things. They all value NETIFESI. Well, that's an alpha quadrant. This is why identifying value is so important. Gotta have it. What else? Strong versus weak. Number three. Which are the elements that appear strong in this individual? Which are the ones that appear weak in this individual? So you're listening to somebody talk and they're saying, yeah, I'm really good in this area and this thing and that thing. I've always kind of been good at it. Yeah, I feel like I've always been strong. Okay, then those are strong. Which areas are they saying I suck in those areas? I'm terrible. I try, but I don't think I can ever get it right. Okay, well then those are the weak ones. And then you're gonna have certain ones somewhere in the middle. And this is how we start ranking and organizing things to figure out what's leading, what's vulnerable or suggestive, what's somewhere in the middle, maybe immobilized or a role function. That's how we start sorting it all out, right? Some additional dichotomies, okay, additional because they're not as important. The other three are more important. These can sometimes be a little bit more difficult to see. There's some wiggle room when you're in the real world typing somebody. So when you become more intermediate, advanced at this stuff, then you start using this a lot more too, but it's not as important. So what are they? Stubborn versus flexible. Also, AKA inert versus contact. So the stubborn ones are ones that you stubbornly want to keep using it. You think you're good at it, or you want to be good at it, and you keep trying to use it. Regardless of how strong you might be on it, you keep wanting to do the thing. Versus flexible or contact, where you're willing to yield to others, you're willing to yield to the situation, you're willing to defer to someone else to do it for you, maybe. You're like, okay, fine. Right? Your leading function, your mobilized function, they're stubborn. You want to do it. I want to do it for myself. I'm going to try, even if I'm not very good at it, but I insist that I'm going to try. Right. And then which are the ones you're like, listen, it's fine. This is kind of what we mean by that. Two, public versus private. Which are the ones that, again, you're willing to put out there? Everyone can kind of see it. It's very much a part of the identity. It's public. And what are the things that are more private? You internally kind of value it, like it, and so on, but you don't always really show it quite so obviously to people. Public versus private. And there's a few more. There's a couple more ways you can do it, like supply and demanding. Da da da. Okay, these up here, absolutely critical. This is the basis for us to begin to have a conversation and justify a typing. Without it, you've got nothing. You have incomplete homework. Here's another way to think about all this. If I'm the client, I'm your client, I came to you, you're typing me, and you come to me and you say, well, I see some TE in you, maybe. I think I see some FE in you in there somewhere because I see a lot of this FE thing happening, though. So I think you're an ENFJ. I'm gonna look at you and I'm gonna say, is that it? That's all you got? Like, where is everything else? I mean, you've identified maybe two elements, but where the hell is everything else? Where are all the other elements? Where do they go? That's all you can tell me. Then I'm gonna be a very unsatisfied customer. Like, any fool could have told me that. You didn't tell me much. Each individual is a puzzle, and you need to put all the pieces together in the puzzle. And it all needs to make sense based on the evidence provided by their interview or whatever it is you're doing that you're using. Okay? The better the pieces all fit and the more evidence you have to put those pieces together, the stronger your case is for why they are that type. And we can now all refer to the model and see what you're doing and where you say all the pieces go. And then we could look at the person and try to see, does this make sense or not? That's how this all has to play out. So you can't fixate on one or two elements. That's what you see, and that's it. Well, what about everything else? Where's the vulnerable function? Where's the suggestive? Where's their demonstrative? Where's all these other things? Right? Got to account for all of it. Otherwise, it's incomplete. Down here, model A, I did a little quick jot down of all this, and you could see all the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. It's making a little U shape. Down here, 5, 6, 7, 8. Another U shape going the other way. There's a lot of different little shapes and spirals that you will see, things bouncing back and forth. There's a bunch of them, a bunch. Okay. They have a purpose. Notice bold, cautious, cautious, bold, bold and cautious, cautious, bold. All of the elements that fall into those areas and those functions, whatever falls in that function should be bold or it should be cautious. Notice stubborn. Here are the stubborn ones. The person wants to do it for themselves. They're not yielding on that. They don't care about other people doing it. They kind of want to do it. Which are the ones that are flexible. They're willing to be more yielding to the situation or the person, whatever. Valued. Ego block up here, valued. And strong. Super ego, weak and unvalued. You have the super id, weak and valued. So they do care about it, but they're weak. And then the id block, they're strong, but unvalued. Right? Very important. Notice those distinctions. Strong, you're good at it. You think you're pretty good at it anyway. Yeah, whatever. Got it. I don't really care. It's unvalued. Stay in the background, whatever. All of these things have to be accounted for. So if I was doing an IEE, an ENFP here, Okay, NEFITISETESINIS, right? All this, all the elements accounted for, plugged in, and we should see that, and we should look at the individual, and we should put the two together and go, yeah, makes sense. All these elements and these positions and so forth make sense for this person. Okay, this prevents people from silly claims sometimes. You can't say, well, I think this person is an EIE, ENFJ type with high FE, Dom FE, but I also see really, really strong, good usage of TI. That doesn't work. That's crazy. It doesn't work. Something is wrong. You mistyped them. You didn't, something is off, right? This is why we have to make sure that we put all the pieces together so things make sense, so we can put together a good narrative, a good explanation for everything. Okay. By narrative, I'm referring to all of the pieces being put together in a sensible way with good evidence, good reasoning as to why, based on what the person said and has done, based on their history that they have demonstrated, all those pieces together, and we can now create this narrative of how all of this in your life works this way. And that person should be able to go, yeah, yeah, it makes sense. That makes sense for my leading function. Yeah, I do try to do that. Not always so great. It makes sense for mobilizing. Yeah, my weak spot is this. Yeah, it makes sense. I've always been shit at it. I don't value that. Yeah, whatever. Right? They should be doing a lot of nodding. Okay. In my view, I see a client and they're there and they're at the end looking at the type and they're like, no, not really. I sure. And they're doing all the, to me, that means that they're not buying. Something is wrong. Either I'm not explaining it right, or whatever explanation I'm giving them, they're not buying it. It's things are not adding up. It's not fitting in the right spot. Something is off. Okay? Or say that's another thing. Renin dichotomies. What we were just talking about is functional dichotomies, function dichotomies, not Renin dichotomies. So we have a separate animal there. Now, Renin dichotomies is a complicated beast that people debate over and argue about all the time. They argue about stuff all the time. Tactical versus strategic. Is an SLE really strategic? Is an SEE strategic? I don't know. I don't make percent. And then we start debating process result. Debates go on forever. There's a lot of chaos that goes on in there. So it is unwise, in my opinion, to use Renin dichotomies for the initial typing portion of it. Don't want to do that. Talking to the person, discussing things, asking questions, hearing what they're saying, asking follow-up questions to clarify and make sure that you're hearing what you think you're hearing. And then you're figuring out what's bold, what's not bold, what's valued, what's strong, what's weak. Where does it all go in the model? Does it all make sense in the end? Every piece accounted for. We do. Okay, so now we have our typing with high confidence of what the type is, or maybe we have a secondary type. We realize there could be something amiss, right? But we have our typing. We have a good case for that. Now we can start playing with Renin dichotomies and figure out, okay, merry, judicious, decisive. Is this person aristocratic or democratic? Is this person tactical versus strategic? Is this person process versus result? Et cetera. We can start going down that list. A lot of those Renin dichotomies are a bit more useful when you're trying to figure out intertype relations, why certain types get along or don't get along, why certain quadras get along with other quadras or don't, why certain types seem to sort of mirror each other in a weird, different way. Um, how some types can kind of work together in a way where it looks like they're falling into benefit rings, which now a whole other thing, right? Benefit rings, benefit cycles, supervision rings, blah, 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 right? It gets more and more crazy. But for the beginning, to start with, this is what you're playing with. This is what you need. And this is the basic language and framework that any socionist playing with Model A, because I know Model G has a whole other thing going on over there. With Model A, this is what we're all going to be looking for and asking for and arguing about. Where's their bold? Where's the value? Where's this? Where's that? So if you can't answer that, we don't have an argument. We don't have a conversation. We're not going anywhere. You have incomplete work. Think of this as math class. Please don't cringe, but it's math, where it's like being in algebra and your teacher's telling you, you finished the problem. Okay, now check your work. Check your work. Plug it back into the equation and see if it still works. You think they're ENFJ? Okay, check the model. What does it all look like? Are all the elements accounted for and everything is reasonably accounted for? And you can make a good argument as to why they're in each of those spots. Okay, now you have something to present the client, to tell them what's up, to tell them why you think they're this or that. What does it mean to be in that function? How they should feel about it, right? That also plays it. If it's a demonstrative function, the person should feel like it's a, yeah, I'm good at it, but who cares? Isn't everybody? Meh. They should generally feel something like that. If it's a weak spot that they suck at and they don't care, that's how they should feel about it. Yeah, I suck at it. I'm terrible at it. Yeah, no surprise. And I still don't give a shit. Right? Everything is lining up. Okay, so this is what is the beginning is important. After this, Reinin dichotomies. Then you can play with all that stuff. That's later. But this model A, 3 key functional dichotomies is your starting point. It's the beginnings of typing somebody correctly, building a good case, hopefully satisfying whoever the hell it is you're typing, or satisfying yourself. If they don't give a shit, it's just you typing them because you feel like it. This is how you're checking your work, making a case. So, see if I missed anything. Probably, because there's plenty to talk about. But I hit the key points, right? This is what we need for quadrant values. Are there shortcuts? Are there ways around some of this where you can kind of speed it up and do some of, yes, of course. The more skilled you are, the more you've been doing socionics for a long time, the more you've built up heuristics, you've built up certain patterns and archetypes and things in your head. You've memorized, I don't want to say memorized, but kind of are really familiar with the quadrant values and what they sound like in real people and what they look like and all that. Then after a while, you can speed up some of this. You can just listen to something and you're like, this person's delta. I'm hearing massive delta quadrant values coming out, or I'm hearing alpha quadrant values coming out. And you can start moving things along a little bit quicker, right? That's natural when you've gotten skilled at something. Nonetheless, even if you've been doing this for 10 years, you still have to justify your typing by going back and using this and showing us where's the bold, where's the valued, where are things strong, where are things weak, where are things stubborn, where does it all fit? And show us your evidence as to why you think it's strong or weak or bold and whatnot. And it all goes there. Okay. I'm sure it looks a little overwhelming, maybe at first. It looks like a lot going on. But after some time, it'll get to that point where it's quick. It's not that big a deal. All of this will just be in the back of your mind, and all you're doing is listen to somebody, and you're already plugging things into valued, unvalued, bold, and all this. And it's just like that. Pop, pop, pop. Okay. This is what you should have when typing or watching a typing session, whatever. Do that, practice, go with that, right? Until you get good enough where it's all just happening right in here. Um, whatever. As always, leave any questions. If I mumbled or stumbled on something or, I don't know, ran over something too fast, probably did in some way, let me know. Uh, whatever other little questions, especially for the beginners who are trying to get started and figure this out, whatever they got. Or if you got some other advanced questions, you just want to jump straight to some Reinin dichotomy or something like that you want to ask about. Chaos land of dichotomies. Personally, this should still apply when you're playing with Model G, in my opinion, but it doesn't because Model G adds a lot of extra stuff. They throw in charges, they throw in um, subtypes, they rename stuff. social mission, social adaptive. They start renaming a bunch of things, and that's why after a while it becomes hard for Model A people to talk to Model G people without it turning into a food fight. So I'll leave it with that. As always, like, comment, subscribe, whatever other questions you have, etc.